Welcome everybody. This is I'm here today with Barnabas Sharp, who's composed music score for quite a few We Make Films films. How many now have you done? Do you remember?
Um, I think it was. I think I'm at three now.
Three.
Currently
Cool.
working on one with another one with you now, and there was Jitters with Kind Pain.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, which is where I first met you. I think I first got
Yeah.
chatting to you, wasn't it? Um, so tell me a little bit about your journey into music, when you started, and when did you start composing music, for instance?
Um, I guess it must have been around when I was sort of maybe 12 or 13,
Is
really,
it?
because I was sort of learning how to play the piano at the time, working through performance grades, and I just started sort of imitating those sorts of pieces myself. And then as I sort of composed more, I learned a couple more tricks of the trade on how to set out classical pieces of music. And then eventually, I guess when I was 16, I think I just, my passion for movies and films really sort of flowed into one another. And I figured I would really, really like to be a film composer and just trying my best ever since.
So that's been your main passion, is it, to write for film, music for film?
Yeah, so because it's sort of one of the genres of music that I listen to the most. It's film music because I really sort of enjoy the process and just everything that goes into making film music and just listening to it because since movies are my passion, being able to hear the soundtrack and just reliving those moments about how I feel about a certain film is just it's just wonderful, and being a part of that process, to help create that would just be a dream come true.
Yeah, okay, that's impressive. I never didn't know that. So who's your inspiration?
Um, I've got quite a few because I draw sort of from a lot of different composers. But for me, I think if I had to go for one film composer that I would have to draw inspiration from and be my personal inspiration, it would be Michael Giacchino. He's the film composer for quite a lot. You may have known him from his work on The Incredibles, Up, and Inside Out, and Ratatouille. He's also scored the recent three Star Trek films.
I see. Right.
Yeah,
Wow.
as well as Rogue One, the recent Jurassic Worlds, and he's done quite a lot. He's known as the nerdy film composer because he's done a lot of these big sort of sci-fi fantasy franchise films.
Interesting. Fascinating. All right.
Yeah.
Um, so what in that same vein, only maybe one of his or someone else's, what's your favorite film score? What's the one for you?
Oh,
You have one?
I mean, it's hard to pick just one because there are just so many that are so good. But if I had to go for my favorite one, I'm going to choose two because there's an even split. The first being it was a Japanese animated film that came out in 2001. Probably heard of it. It's called Spirited Away.
Uh-huh.
It was directed by Hayao Miyazaki, and the music was by Joe Hisaishi, whose music sort of speaks wonders because, again, he sort of pours all of his influences into his music. There's just the beautiful Japanese pentatonic composition with the elements of neoclassicism and just intense beauty. And the other one, I feel like the perfect film score, very, very close, would have to be the original Star Wars by John Williams.
Right. So the very first film.
Oh yeah, I know it's a bit of an obvious choice, to go with that.
No, at least I
But,
know that film.
but I feel like at the time and even today, the music for that is timeless. There's just
Yeah.
something so wonderful about it.
And it's pretty emotive as well. It gets those emotions going well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's interesting.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
It's weird because I guess if we watch Star Wars without the music, because when you look back at the production at the time, not a lot of people had a lot of faith in Star Wars as a film back then. But it's only when you have the music, it sort of pushes it to a whole new level of
Yeah.
this. It takes it from this sci-fi sort of silly sci-fi film into something that's a grand space opera to what it truly is.
Yeah. I mean, I think from a personal point, my personal experience of your work, you did the same for Jitters and, of course, Birthday. You raised that film right up, I think, with your film work, with your music. And I've certainly, I mean, my experience with music making has been very limited. But I recognise when I watch a film with a good score that you produce, it really elevates the film from my point of view. And what's interesting is you don't know why.
Yeah.
So I did watch our films when there's no score, of course, until the composer gets involved. And the difference is chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have known that. If I hadn't have listened to it first, I would have just not known that. And I think that's the same for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And isn't that the mark of a good score, really, is where you're lifting people's emotions without them even realizing how it's happening?
Yeah, and it's just, again, I feel like, the music can sort of tell like 1,000 different stories in a way. Not, yeah. And the key thing is to try and link it to the film, not only so that it matches the emotions of what's happening in the story, but also really elevates it.
Yeah, and does what the director wants, I suppose, at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that in more than a few occasions, the score has saved the film.
Oh yeah, it has completely. I remember I've been to a cinema quite a fair few times, and I've seen quite a couple of abysmal films, but it has fantastic music that's doing everything it can to save it. And sometimes it works, and sometimes I go out of the cinema and start humming the music because that was the only thing I liked about it.
Cool. So you're sitting there in front of your keyboard there. Is that the only instrument you use when you're making film scores? Is it?
Yeah, it is. Basically, so this is a Yamaha DGX 660. It's also nicknamed the Portable Grand because this is one of the best keyboards that you can use to really sort of get a weighted feel on the keys. Because most keyboards, all of the keys just feel plasticky and the same, but this one, the keys are weighted differently as if they were a piano. So you've got the real heavy keys at one end and the lighter keys at the other.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah, I use this because it's the only electronic thing that can connect to my laptop. I use Logic Pro X to compose the scores, and that comes with a free library of instrument sounds. But I've also downloaded the BBC Symphony Discover Orchestra library that I was able to get hold of. So that's sort of recordings of the BBC Symphony Orchestra creating sounds, and just sort of being able to have those sounds together so it makes a more sort of real sounding performance is absolutely fantastic to work with.
And you feed all that into Logic, and then you...
Yes.
How do you approach your project? So, take something like Birthday or whatever. How the devil do you approach a project like that?
Well, I feel like people sort of assume that because film music is sort of orchestral, then you'd assume to sort of treat it the same as like maybe writing a classical work of art. And however, the challenge is because you have a picture and movement to follow through, you have to make sure that your music is lining up to that. And I feel like the approach that is best to take with that is to really sort of rely on instincts. For example, basically, with film scoring, you're working to a time frame. You don't have 3 years to create your magnum opus. You have to keep to the deadlines, and you have to really sort of go with your instincts. And the more you practice that, the better that your response is. So if there was, if I was watching like a film without a score that had been sent over, and if there was a scene where a character is sad or sort of emotionally down, then instinct would click to me and go like, okay, we need some sort of sad music, sort of maybe improvise something, maybe something that I've thought up beforehand, and then sort of go with it. People say like, isn't that sort of cheating a bit? But I feel like it's the best way forward. You have to go by instinct because that's what the audience is going to be doing when they're watching the film, because they're going to be making a lot of assumptions as well. You have to, we act like it's this big sort of art form that's, untouchable, but, and again, it's a performance in the way that you're just sort of helping along and writing down. It's just going to be set in stone later.
Yeah, I understand. And where did you learn to do this? I mean, how did you learn? Did you go to university? What college? What did you do?
Oh, yeah, I went to university, and because I did a partial music course. I did my bachelor's in mathematics and music, and then I did my master's in music composition.
Oh, right, interesting.
Yeah. So whilst I was doing music composition, that was focusing on like contemporary classical music, I did a couple of film music options on the side. So again, it was really sort of something to really sort of try and learn to hone my craft and do the best I can. And also, when you're at university, you have, you know, not only do you have to sort of serve your department, it's a great opportunity for you to be sort of, you know, just to sort of try things that you didn't think would work.
Yeah.
But halfway during my second year, I sent, you know, out of the blue, because I really wanted to do more with film music. Out of the blue, it must have been maybe 1 o'clock in the morning on a cold January night when you're at that point where you have no idea what you want to do with your life. So you do things out of the blue. I sent an email to the film and media department there saying, I'm an aspiring composer who wants to get experience with scoring some short films. Do you have any that you could send me over or practice with? And a couple of days later, I get about 10 different emails from all of these film students who are desperate to find composers.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, you can't serve all of them, so I had to pick one and really sort of try and learn from scratch how it's going to go. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, if you want me to tell you about my first short film scoring experience later or now, just let me know.
Go for it. No, tell us about it.
Oh, the first time you try something you've never done before, you always have to be prepared for the worst, because it's, you know, it's going to be hard. So this short film that I decided to sign up for with university, done by a couple of third year students, was about a dancer. So so they wanted sort of a nice big orchestral piece of music, and I said yes, I can do that for you. And so wrote this big orchestral piece onto like sort of a score, like a handwritten score, and you know, it sort of printed it out, music score, because the producers, and these are student producers, by the way, they told me that, they said, oh, don't worry, we can arrange an orchestra to come over and play this for you. And I figured, well, this is going to be fantastic. Okay, this is going to be great. And had this all ready. And then literally, they must have been set behind with a lot of stuff, because they decided to record it the night before that they had to hand over their film.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I figured, okay, this is going to be interesting, but I'm prepared. And then they told me at the last minute that they couldn't get the orchestra. So I figured, okay. So, you know, when you're sort of mildly panicking, you figured, okay, I'll bring this into a reduced piano version and we'll record it live. And they said, oh, we've got a pianist, by the way. And it was one of their housemates who said they could play the piano, but not instantly read music that they've never seen before. So it must have been getting to about maybe 11 o'clock at night. And again, this is the night before the film is due to be handed in, where we're all very overly tired, trying to record all of this music on a piano in a dingy room right next to an A road. So, you know, where you get a lot of cars coming. And by the time we had done all the recordings, I feel like it was best agreed that we handed it over and we agreed to never speak to each other again. But, you know, you learn from these things. And, you know, I decided, okay, you know what, I'm just going to get hold of some software to help me record this, because doing it live was one of the worst decisions I've ever made. Not that there's anything wrong with recording something live, but, you know, needs must. And, you know, when you're working to sort of a certain scale, you do have to adapt for it.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think the next project we're doing is going to be somewhere where someone's singing, and obviously we're locked down at the moment, so but we're planning to do this hopefully end of March, beginning of April, and that's be the first time we'll be doing using live music on a film. So that'll be a big learn. As all of the stuff we make films is always a massive learning curve. Massive for us. I mean, I don't have a musical bone in my body, to be fair, so I'm very envious of you being able to create stuff, because I just haven't got a clue. But have you got some tips that you would have inspired to inspire budding composers?
Yeah.
What would you say is the most important thing?
Yeah. Well, let me guess, like the obvious thing, watch as many films as you can and listen to as much music as you can, but maybe sort of try and branch out as much as you can as well. I mean, when I first started and I figured, oh, I've got this whole, you know, world of film music to sort of sink my teeth into. I have to admit, I even haven't listened to as much as I thought I would by now. But it's all still there. I figured with now we have Spotify and YouTube, which can give us sort of all of this unlimited streaming access. I think the hardest thing is knowing where to start, and I feel like to film composers that is a bit sort of scary. I would say just sort of start with what you know and slowly branch out from there. If there's a composer that you already like, then maybe watch some more of the stuff that they've scored.
Right.
If there are any directors who work with particular composers, then watch some of their films. And sometimes you just got to draw a wild card. Just pick a famous foreign language film that's been out in the last 10 years and give the music to that a listen. Just try it. And if you like it, then have a think about what made you like it. And if you didn't like it, if you didn't like the film or the music, not only trying to reason why you didn't like it, but maybe sort of have a think about what, if you were in their position, what would you have done differently?
And also I suppose the music drives the pace of a film often as well, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And that's quite important, I suppose.
Hmm.
Why did you get involved with WeMakeFilms?
Well, just a couple of just sort of looking around for just any sort of composing gigs that were going and failing. And then out of the blue, there was a Facebook advert for WeMakeFilms, and I figured it looked interesting, but it also took me by surprise because the tagline was that they made films around the M25 area. And at university, at the time I was living in Egham in Surrey, and it was right on the cusp of the M25. And I figured, oh, okay, this looks interesting. It's a nice big range of places to work with. Maybe I'll give it a go. And I guess the other thing that really attracted me about WeMakeFilms is sort of what it stands for and what it aims to do. It's hard. It's a hard industry to get into, with film and TV, and you can have as many degrees and qualifications as you'd like, but experience is the key, to landing something in the big world. And what WeMakeFilms offers is not only, can it give you something for your CV and the experience, but everyone treats it like a professional shoot. This is, they don't treat you any differently because you're an amateur or you're inexperienced. I feel like when you come onto a project and the projects that they work on, you are going to get everything that you need from this. It will prepare you. And I feel like it's, with the arts, it's very important.
Yeah, because you get to work directly with the director and me, the producer, on most films, although I don't get involved too much.
Yeah.
What's that experience like? How do you work that with the director? Because, I mean, directors, best in the world, would be from one end of the scale to the other. So how do you work with them?
Again, it's sort of like I read in sort of one of my film music books that the composer, when they're liaising with the director, they're kind of like acting like a therapist in a way, because
they need them.
Yeah, well, they're trying to work out. Sometimes, not all of the time, the director probably won't be musically literate. They won't know all the composing terms or the or the musical expressions. So they'll you've got to try and work out what the director wants, and convert what they want into something that they'd like, whilst also putting a bit of yourself into it as well.
Yes, I suppose for some directors, you're holding their hand a lot. I mean, if I was directing a film, you'd definitely be holding my hand when it comes to the visual side, as I think you've experienced in the past. Because I would just say, "Oh, I've got a clue. Over to you." Yeah, I'm really good. And but I suppose other directors, such as Adrian, for instance, who has a music background, will have far more input into what he's after.
Anyway, and working with you work with different directors. They'll sometimes want different things. Sometimes you'll work with a director who knows exactly what they want, and they'll tell you to like the second what sort of music they want at a particular point. Or sometimes you'll have a director that will just tell you to do whatever they'd like.
Yeah, that would be me. Anything you want to add? How about, what was your favourite WeMakeFilms film you worked on?
Oh, it's Well,
I may not put this in.
that's a hard one. Well then,
You've done
I,
jitters,
I
which is
don't think
what.
I could. I don't think I can choose because I don't think I've done enough. But if you want to know a couple of little extra secrets behind the music scores for each We Make Films film that I've scored,
Yeah.
then listen closely. The main theme for Off His Job is based on the Latin chant of Dies Irae, which is the death chant. I took that and turned it into a little bit of a jazzy theme tune because working in an office is such a pain, but Adrian Dean's script and direction was just so funny that it just had to work with it.
Right.
Mockery of death. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
And yeah, for birthday, the opening 3 notes to that main theme just about hangs on the Happy Birthday tune. Of course, we can't use the Happy Birthday tune because that's copyrighted, but it just hangs on just enough. And yeah, a lot of it was sort of inspired by, Harry Potter, John Williams soundtrack.
Yeah. And, what else have you worked on? I forget. You've done 3 of you so far.
Yeah. In the leak, the metal cling that you hear that's reverbed was created by striking a knife onto a window hook frame. Added lots of reverb to it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, long may you keep touring, and thanks ever so much, Barnabas. Really appreciate it. Do you have if anyone watching this is interested and wants to talk to you, how can they get in contact with you? Do you have a company or a brand?
Yeah. So my YouTube channel uploads the scores that I've done for We Make Films, as well as all my other composition projects. And the best way to get in contact with me is through my Facebook page. It's called B Sharp Productions, and you can find it at B Sharp 97. Of course, I guess we'll post links to it here.
Yeah, absolutely right. At B Sharp 97. All right. Sounds really good. Thanks ever so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
And hopefully we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Barnabas, have a good day.
And you. Thank you.